Did you know that the total bulk weight sold each year of NARS's top-selling orgasm blush equals the weight of a Lamborghini? Welcome to the Cosmetic Chronicles, the podcast where history meets beauty and tells the amazing stories behind some of the world's most notorious brands. I'm your host, Sarah Carvalho, and I'm a beauty journalist who has been obsessed with makeup since my first swipe of mascara. In this episode, we're covering NARS Cosmetics, a brand that started with just 12 lipsticks and became a brand that is still making $44 million in e-commerce revenue alone as of 2024. If you're not familiar with NARS, you might be a little bit more familiar with the game-changing, still award-winning blush shade that was made over 25 years ago, a little blush named Orgasm. It's a beautiful pinky peach shade with a little shimmer that is supposedly flattering on pretty much anyone, but me, as it turns out. When I was really getting into makeup outside of just the drugstore aisles, maybe about my mid-20s or so, I just kept reading about this particular NARS blush shade. And this was like 15 years after it was created, right? But it was still in every article and every, Allure best beauty blush shade, every year. So when I was living in London, I proudly walked into their John Lewis. This is their fancy department store, one of their many. And I walked right up to the NARS counter asking for their powder blush and Orgasm. And the salesperson went ahead, put it on my cheeks, and then just went, "Oh, no, this doesn't work for you." And bless them for being honest, but it was slightly devastating. Everyone else seemed to look great in it, but it just didn't work on my skin tone or undertones or I don't know what. But again, he was honest, but I still made him sell it to me. It's like, I still want it. And he sold it to me in the multiple, which is that multi-stick formula, which I have now learned during my research that was a very big deal at the time. But I never really used it because it just wasn't a flattering shade on me. But I hope it works for you. The thing I've always appreciated about NARS was their range of unique colors and just options and textures. So if you're like me and maybe that universal shade is maybe not so universal for you, there are plenty of others to choose from with the same great formula. I'll have more of my favorite products from NARS later on, but for now, let's just go back to the beginning. Now, everyone's going to have to forgive me. There's going to be a lot of French things in this episode, and while my Duolingo is doing its best, I still am not great at any kind of pronunciation. So bear with me, my French friends out there. If you're listening, I'm doing my best. NARS was originally founded in 1994, but its creator, Francois Nars, began his relationship with makeup from childhood. Born in Tarbes in the south of France in 1959, Francois was deeply inspired by his mother Claudette, who loved fashion, but was considered more of a natural beauty. So in an interview with The Independent, he said, quote, "I don't think she had to work very hard at looking very beautiful. Makeup wasn't really a major accessory. She was very feminine and elegant naturally," end quote. And this theme really stuck with Francois, particularly when it came to makeup specifically. In that same interview, he also described his grandmother, saying that one was, quote, "a makeup junkie. She loved makeup and was very artistic. She loved to paint and draw and did very beautiful makeup on herself. The other grandmother had a more natural side, which was very good. I built my career on a balance of natural and sophisticated beauty," end quote. So that early exposure to both the artistic side of makeup and more of the natural, subdued beauty side of makeup is really what created what would become his whole aesthetic. So through this early exposure to fashion and beauty, he quickly became more infatuated with the pages of like a French Vogue instead of a comic book. And Francois's mother, Claudette, encouraged her son's interest in the industry, and she would often take him with her on appointments to see Paris's greatest makeup artists, and eventually secured him his first assistant role with Olivier Chaudmaison. Oh, please don't hate me. So he ended up going to Carita Institute in Paris, which is where he first really started experimenting with color and texture. And this would eventually be something that he would use to disrupt what was considered the overly perfect beauty look of the 80s. But More on that later. So he started experimenting with color and texture. He wanted to go to this institute in Paris because he would be getting some real life interactions with famous makeup artists, with people who were in the field, in the industry doing it. And he wanted to learn from those particular people, not just be in a classroom learning techniques. And after he graduated, he started booking steady work with French magazines. But it wasn't until he did an American Vogue shoot in 1984 that really changed everything. So he explained in that same independent article, quote, I had worked with Polly Mellon, who was the then fashion director of American Vogue, on a shoot in Paris, and she loved my work. So she booked me on a trip for the magazine with the photographer Peter Lindbergh, and we shot the collections. She said, you should come to New York. And it took me about 6 months to decide. I just couldn't leave. I had to get rid of my apartment in Paris because I knew if I had moved to New York, it would be permanent. I wouldn't be back. I would live there and become a New Yorker, end quote. So he did eventually move to New York City in 1984, where he started doing looks for runway shows, most notably Marc Jacobs and then later Anna Sui in 1992. And also during this time, he became known for editorial shoots for magazines like American and Italian Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and Elle. And not to mention, he worked with some incredible lists of collaborators that included Richard Avedon, Helmut Newton, Irving Penn, Paolo Roversi, and Bruce Weber, as well as Calvin Klein and Madonna, hello, among others. And in doing so, Francois has crafted some of what are considered the most iconic looks and fashion images of the last 3 decades, always kind of challenging what makeup is and what it can do and what it should look like. And also during these years, he began working specifically with 2 people, photographer Steven Meisel and acclaimed hairstylist Oribe Canales. The trio shared this aesthetic that quickly came to define fashion photography of the time. And together they created these iconic fashion stories using the then still rising models like Linda Evangelista, Naomi Campbell, and Kate Moss. And their work actually helped those models reach their legendary supermodel status. So all of this was going great for him. Francois was really killing it, becoming an icon in his own right. But he still became frustrated at the cosmetics that were actually available to him as a makeup artist. And this is a story that I hear a lot from makeup artist brands, is that they clearly feel that there is something missing in the marketplace and have enough experience having to mix and figure out what they need in the colors and the products and the formulas and the textures, that they're like, I'm just going to do it myself. And he actually said in an interview with Allure in 2019, quote, when you're a makeup artist, sometimes you have an idea to create a formula or a specific product because you are working on a set. Sometimes you create something without realizing you're creating something. That's why makeup artist brands are loved, I think. Makeup artists, we really know what we're talking about, end quote. So now comes the launch of NARS Cosmetics. In 1994, he launched his namesake collection with 12 lipsticks, sold exclusively at Barney's New York. Francois knew he wanted to start with lipstick. There's a quote where he says, quote, I love lipstick. It is the one makeup item that women all over the world must have, no matter what, end quote. He would be very proud of me. I am swimming in lipstick. They will outlive me. So along with this launch of the lipsticks, this was also the launch of NARS's minimalist matte black rubber packaging with thin white all cap letters that we know so well today. Yes, the exact same packaging was in 1994 as it is today. And this was actually created by Fabienne Baron, who Francois met on a shoot in 1989. Now, I know we're only 3 episodes into this podcast, but I feel like there is a theme that runs through all of them so far, is that I like to go down a little rabbit hole that I wasn't expecting. It just comes up during research. And today's rabbit hole is featuring Fabienne Baron. Fabienne is a French director, magazine editor, art director, and just all-around creative. He's actually responsible for designing Madonna's 1992 book Sex and directing the accompanying documentary, which was iconic. He's also responsible for creative directing Calvin Klein's first campaign for CK1 featuring Kate Moss, as well as designing the actual bottle for CK1, which was the first unisex fragrance. He's been called by Vanity Fair, quote, the most sought after creative director in the world, end quote. Wow. Okay, that was a quick rabbit hole, but I fell down it. I wanted to share. Fabienne Baron, look him up, and he created the NARS packaging that we know and love so well. Okay, back to the NARS lipstick launch at Barney's. Francois launches with 12 lipsticks, and he really wasn't sure what was going to happen. He said, quote, "My idea was to make a great lipstick with great packaging. I surrounded myself with a few people I knew I could trust and thought, let's see. If women don't like it, we close the line and do something else," end quote. Well, obviously that didn't happen. It exploded in popularity. And in 1995, just a year later, the collection was expanded and became a bestseller for the store. And from here, he just began building the brand, adding more products, adding different lines, different colors, different formulas, and creating iconic products, including, yes, Orgasm, as well as the Multiple, a multi-use stick that ended up starting a monochromatic phenomenon. So after the lipstick line, the Multiple actually came first before the shade Orgasm. It happened in a photo shoot for the March 1996 issue of Harper's Bazaar. In that interview with Allure that I mentioned earlier, he describes the exact day that he came up with the idea for the product. And I'm going to quote directly from the article here. I always link all of my sources in the show notes, and obviously this article will be there as well. I highly recommend reading it. It's such a great breakdown of all the iconic products. The article says, the photographer was Patrick Demarchelier. Devil Wears Prada, anyone? Do we do what we wanted, what we feel was the concept given to the makeup artist on set, Francois says. But he didn't know what to do. Eventually, he decided to make it easy for himself by blending Tangier, one of his lipstick shades at the time, onto model Carolyn Murphy's lids, lips, and cheeks. I probably had 40 lipsticks in front of me, but I picked Tangier thinking, oh, she's blonde, she has green eyes, an orangey color would look great on her, he recalls. It wasn't too bright, not too day glow, not too brown. Then Nars swiped mascara onto Murphy's lashes to finish off the look. In just 10 minutes, he was done. Carolyn loved it because it was easy, Nars said. That was the lucky part. I made it look like I didn't care, but I cared. I always cared. Murphy's makeup proved you could look amazing with a single shade. If it could work for Murphy, Nars figured it would work for millions of others. Enter the Multiple, a foolproof product with a velvety formula that's just the right texture to be used on your entire face. So once this article came out and the credits in the photo said that it was this particular lipstick that was just used all over the face, people started doing that. People actually started taking that lipstick shade, Tangier, themselves and putting it all over their face. So he was like, I'm going to make this a thing, an actual multi-stick. And I don't know if they're so common now, but I don't feel like it was very common in 1996 to have like a cream multi-stick. But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember much from 96, but I feel like that was kind of an interesting phenomenon. So after the multi-stick, in 1999 came the iconic shade Orgasm, which was actually not the immediate name for the shade. He had a bunch of other thoughts running through his head, pleasure, passion, you name it. But in that same Allure interview, he talks about how he doesn't remember exactly where he was when he decided to use that name. He knows it was in New York, but that's about it. And he said in the interview, quote, I wish I could have remembered knowing it was going to be such a success. I should have written it down. Today I created Orgasm Blush at 3 o'clock in the morning or 9:30 p.m. But I never know what's really going to be successful and what people are going to love or not. It's very hard to tell, end quote. So he created this shade, but it wasn't like he was setting out to really shock anyone. And if you haven't noticed yet, or maybe you haven't taken a look at other shade names in the NARS range, but it's kind of on par. And when it comes to naming blushes, it doesn't just end with Orgasm. In the current lineup, you'll find names like Infatuated, Sex Appeal, Thrill, Teased, Foreplay, and others that I really don't want to say because I know my mom is listening. But Francois has said, quote, when you blush, automatically it's a feeling. So I thought I'd give those names to blushes. Some of them could be more sexual or more naughty. I thought makeup was a very sensual thing. It helps women feel sexy and look sexy. I think it's a great tool to seduce. The idea was to give an identity to the product, end quote. So along with creating these immediate icons, not just for the names, right? The products themselves are actually great products. But also his advertisements and choice of models were ahead of its time. He was one of the first to use advertising to showcase makeup's versatility, including a stripped-down minimalism that's now synonymous with the 1990s. But at the time, it was viewed as like strikingly brave to have a very minimal makeup look. And additionally, long before other brands recognized the importance of diversity, and some are still lacking with that, NARS campaigns were already featuring models of different ethnicities and ages, something that Francois says comes naturally when you truly see and value people's individuality. He says, quote, "I like individuality and people who are unique. There's always drama in the images I create, and I love non-typical beauty. There is always something off in the best sense about the models I cast. Strong features and personalities are beautiful," end quote. I love that. Francois eventually sold NARS to Shiseido in 2000, but he still remains the artistic director, in-house photographer, and copywriter for the brand. I read an interesting Irish Times article during my research that talked about how Francois navigates the market's demands even as trends shift without losing the vision he's had since his early days as the makeup artist, and how rare it is for a major beauty brand to still have one person directing so many parts of the work, which I thought was actually quite interesting. So many people sell their brands and then step away and maybe start a new project, which is not unexpected or bad, but Francois is still very heavily involved in NARS, and I find that to be a very interesting dichotomy. Francois was quoted in that Irish Times article saying that he simply isn't interested in following trends for the sake of it, which thank God. He says, quote, "Some brands have a philosophy of piling makeup on, but this look can be lifeless and make the wearer look like a wax mannequin. The woman should be first and the makeup second. Skin is important. Compliments like 'your makeup looks great' are not real compliments. You want a sense of life to come through for people to say you look great. This is what good makeup will do for everyone," end quote. All right, let's quickly run through the icons, shall we? Because that's what we're all here to talk about. Obviously, I want you to put in the comments your icons, but these are the ones that I would say the brand has deemed icons, but then also just the world and the amount of people that buy this each year. So I'm going to use like data, but I want to know what your personal icons are. So obviously the powder blush, not just an orgasm either, by the way. I feel like it's making a little bit of a comeback. I'm seeing it a lot more online. I'm seeing a lot of return to back to the basics or back to the OGs. And the powder blush is really making a comeback. I feel like cream blush is still a great choice, but I just feel like the powder blush formula has come such a long way, and the NARS powder blush in particular, and Orgasm again is the number one seller for them, so obviously that is an icon. The multiple, the icon we talked about, that was inspired by that 1996 Harper's Bazaar photo shoot, and apparently, like I said, this was a big deal because women started using one color for the lips, cheeks, and eyes. But from a larger sense, this monochromatic look that Francois made actually kind of started a phenomenon in the fashion industry, in the beauty industry. Kind of this idea of this effortless artistry when everything was kind of so honed in on. And just the idea of taking one color and just dabbing it with fingers and being done in 10 minutes, that was kind of unheard of in 1996, and the monochromatic look was something that he helped build on. So the multiple is kind of known for that monochromatic style. Also, the light reflecting foundation. Now, I don't know when this one came out, but I have firsthand viewing of a makeup artist applying this to my best friend's face for her wedding, and it looked incredible. It lasted all day. I'm that person that always goes up to the makeup artist wherever there is a makeup artist, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a film shoot, whether it's a photo shoot. I'm like right by the makeup artist's side asking them about all the products in their kit. And I was asking her about the foundation that she was choosing for a bride because that has to be really stressful. And she said this NARS light reflecting foundation is one of the best that she's used. It photographs beautifully. It stays all day. It's sheer enough so you don't feel like you're wearing a lot of makeup, and it looked absolutely stunning on my friend, and she sold me on the spot basically. So I understand why this is an icon. Also an icon is the light reflecting setting powder. I've never tried this, but leave a comment with your thoughts. I'm assuming it's good, but let me know if it's overrated. Another icon, which I do love, is the Radiant Creamy Concealer. This one's for my dry-eyed girls. Some of us need a little radiance and creaminess under the eyes, and this one is a beautiful concealer. I think this has been around for ages, but it's an OG for a reason. And then again, something I'm seeing making the rounds with the youths is the explicit lipsticks. And they now made it refillable, which we love to see. We love a little sustainability out here. But the explicit lipsticks I have seen on a lot of beauty review YouTubers, the old TikToks, the Instagrams. I think that that's making a little bit of a comeback as well. Another brief detour into the lipstick world of NARS, because I have such a love for their lipsticks, but I actually hadn't tried it until maybe about 10 years ago. So back in, I believe actually it was 2016, there was an Instagram post by makeup artist Kayleen McAdams that showed a photo of my queen for life, Mandy Moore, wearing the most beautiful lipstick shade I'd ever seen. And like the unwell person I am, I immediately tagged Kayleen asking her for the lipstick information. And God bless her, she told me. It was the now discontinued Audacious lipstick in Grace and the lip liner in Dragon Girl, both by NARS. So obviously I bought them both immediately. And to this day, almost 10 years later, I get compliments every single time I wear them. And I always wear them together because that's what Kayleen would want. But that was my first introduction into the NARS lip products and those colors and just the formula. Also, let's not sleep on a lip balm, by the way. I have their Afterglow lip balm in Dolce Vita and it's one of my favorites. So the lip products from NARS are particularly amazing. And if you've tried the explicit lipsticks, let me know which one you think I should try because I haven't tried any of them. Okay, so we're just going to end today's episode with some fun facts about Francois because he's a very interesting man and I would love to be able to interview him someday. Francois ended up earning the renowned National Order of the Legion of Honor in 2016 for a lifetime of achievements as a revolutionary makeup artist and creative visionary who left a permanent mark on the fashion and beauty industry worldwide. So that's quite an achievement. In 2019, NARS actually released those original 12 shades, the ones that were the very beginning of NARS Cosmetics, the 12 that were released with Bar News New York. They re-released those original 12 shades in 2019 in a brand new velvety crimson tube, along with 60 additional hues in matte satin and sheer finishes, all with a fresh formula. Now, I don't know if they're still around, but I just thought that was cute. I just thought that was a cute idea. In 2023, the documentary Unknown Beauty, Francois Nars, by filmmaker Lisa Imordino Vreeland was released. And I haven't seen this documentary yet. I didn't even know it existed. But based on the description I found on IMDb, this sounds like something right up my alley. So this is the description for that documentary. Photographer and makeup artist Francois Nars reveals his visually stunning inner world in this feature-length documentary. Mr. Nars takes us on a tour of the fashions, designers, and models of 1970s Paris, the underground of the 1990s New York, and the timeless world of cinema filled with actors, actresses, and directors who have shaped his visual aesthetics. Adding that to my watch list, thank you so much. And one of the last fun facts that I think is absolutely incredible is Francois actually shot the brand's first advertising campaign in 1996, and he still shoots them to this day, by the way. And this photo shoot would actually lead him to start a second career as a photographer, which includes editorials for numerous publications, like Vogue Japan, for example. And he eventually released 6 books of his photo collections. He has 6 books out. His most recent release is called Persona in 2021, which features eclectic portraits of creative figures and includes the amazing Tilda Swinton on the cover. I'm going to end with this quote by Francois. "My philosophy hasn't changed since 1979 or 1980. We don't want to annihilate who you are or transform you into something else. We want to reveal what is there, to enhance what is there. I have always been drawn to strong characters and unstraightforward beauty." So those were the Chronicles of NARS. What do you think of the brand? Do you own the shade Orgasm? Does it look good on you? Leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. Thanks for tuning in, and feel free to share some of the brands that you'd like to see covered on this podcast. See you next time on the Cosmetic Chronicles.